Okay, so welcome and thank you everyone for joining us for the annual Health and Wellness Expo hosted by Campus Recreation. We are so thankful to our presenters today and for you for joining us. We encourage you to attend as many sessions as you'd like, and please visit our website for the full session schedule, and I'll put a link in the chat in a few moments. So everyone who attends a session is entered to win a t-shirt or a water bottle, and you'll be emailed if you're a winner at the end of the sessions. The more sessions you attend, the more chances you have to win. So just a couple of items before we get started. This session is being recorded and you'll be able to refer back to it on our website next week. And please keep yourself muted during the presentation unless directed otherwise by our presenters. And we encourage you to use the chat or for questions or comments. And now I'd like to introduce you to our presenters. First, we have Allison Novak. She is an assistant professor of public relations and advertising in the Edelman College of Communication and Creative Arts. She's also the co-chair of Rowan's Affordability Task Force, and her research focuses on digital media, activism, and youth social movements. Next, Andrew Perrone is the assistant director of the Office of Volunteerism, Community Engagement, and Commuter Services. He's the co-chair of Rowan's Affordability Task Force, and he also teaches sections of Rowan's financial wellness course. So I'll pass it over to you, Allison and Andrew.
All right, thank you for joining us today. We're excited to talk to everyone for the next half hour about some of the affordability resources we have on campus and talk about some of the ways that we can positively impact our community, but with affordability concerns. So I'm going to share my screen with a quick PowerPoint presentation. Today's presentation is basically going to have three parts to it. We'll start by just talking about some of the basic information about our students and the affordability issues that they face. Then Andrew's going to talk a little bit about some of the food resources in particular that we have available to students who are facing food insecurity and hunger. And then we'll wrap up by talking a little bit about some of the ways that you can communicate with students, how you can identify students who might be in crisis, and how to actually start that conversation should you need to. So we'll just jump in today by thinking a little bit about who are our students. So thinking about what are challenges or issues that our students face in terms of hunger and food insecurity, housing insecurity, and other types of resources that are needed on campus. So we're going to present some data that was collected over the past couple of years about our students. And just as a quick plug, we are actually updating this data starting next Monday with our new SHOCK survey. That's the Student Hunger on Campus survey that's being run through SGA. So if you have students, we encourage them to submit it so that we can have a really clear picture of what our students are dealing with. So we'll just picture yourself in front of a class of about 20 students right now. And let's talk a little bit about some of the issues that class on average is likely to face. So one of those 20 students is somebody who has a dependent. This could be a child or somebody who they take care of. It could also be an adult or a grandparent who is registered as a dependent because they require their care. Two were identified as independent, so they are not given any resources or additional help from their family or parents, as most traditional students receive guidance in those ways. 7 of those students are classified as low income, and 7 of those students are also classified as first generation students. But really the category that we're going to address today is this: up to 9 of them are identified as food insecure. And there's many different definitions of food insecurity that exist in the world. The one that we traditionally use means that students are unable to identify where they are getting a food or meal from 2 or more times a week. And one of the interesting things about this category is how often students are unaware that they actually are categorized as food insecure. When they hear things like about a food or a resource pantry, they say, oh, that's for somebody else. I'm not somebody who qualifies for that. And yet hunger is a lot more prevalent than that. And it's oftentimes something that goes unidentified simply because students don't know that they fall within that category. So that's going to be one of the things that we talk about in the second half of the presentation today, is how to identify those students. How do you have that difficult conversation with students? And Andrew's going to talk about the resources that you can direct them to. let's just take a look a little bit at the FAFSA information that our students submit each year. So this is actually based on the 2019 FAFSA data. 2020 FAFSA data is forthcoming. Then we're already in 2021. So you can see how these things evolve very quickly. But out of the over 13,000 students who submitted a FAFSA, we know that over 4,000 of them are Pell eligible, meaning that they have income requirements or income levels that are designated as needing federal support or federal grants in order to afford college. 41 of those students came from the foster care system. Again, that provides additional challenges to the structures of support that they have for pursuing education. One of those students identifies as homeless or houseless, and 82 of them are single care providers of dependents. So again, children or could be older individuals in their household. So you may be thinking to yourself, well, that's really interesting about Rome, but I don't know if that's high, is that low, is that normal? So if we take a look at some of the national trends, we know that about 11% of houses with students in a four-year institution are sort of classified as food insecure. So nationally, our numbers are a little bit higher than most other universities in terms of documenting food insecurity. 17% of students who are in community college are also designated as food insecure, and 41% of students will experience food insecurity at some point during college, which is an important thing to point out that oftentimes when we talk about food insecurity, can be an instantaneous circumstance and not necessarily something that appears over and over again in a student's lifetime. 4% of community college students and 10% of four-year students often have to report that they stay in a location because they don't have long-term housing. And just as a quick sort of reference, there's 640 universities with food or resource pantries on campus. Rowan University is one of those, and we are actually now two of those because we now have a shop at our Stratford location as well. So we are in good company here, and it's just kind of a way to sort of gauge what's happening nationally. Just before we pivot over to talking about some of the resources that Rowan actually has, I think it's an important thing when we think about the cost of education and how affordable an education is, we reflect on some of these approaches that are used to gauge how affordable is an institution. And there's something called the rule of 10, which is really helpful. It says that basically a school is affordable if you could pay the total cost of attendance by working 10 hours a week after your scholarships and grants, and your family has put aside about 10% of their income for 10 years. The study finds that generally 60% of schools in the United States are not classified as affordable, that you would have to be saving or earning more than that in order to be able to afford them. The good news is that Rowan is not one of those schools. We are an affordable institution based on the rule of 10, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every student who comes here is going to have enough finances to be able to afford all the things that are necessary for a full college life. And so Andrew's going to talk a little bit about the resources that are available to help those students who might need them.
All right, thank you, Allison. So Allison did mention there that we are one of the 640 universities across the country that do have a pantry. We have been within that classification since 2017. Do I have? Oh, okay, there we go. And if you are not familiar, we do have a pantry and resource center on campus. We call it the shop. If you are really familiar with the campus map, and you can make your way over to the Rowan Boulevard Apartments complex, we are in Building 5, Room 141, which doesn't mean much to most people. But if you were to be in the Rowan Boulevard apartment complex, in the second courtyard, we actually have an access door straight through the courtyard, rather than having to go through the actual apartment complex. We've also now got better, more significant signage and a flag kind of designated where exactly the shop is. When we opened in 2017, there was a lot of concern from folks about a stigma of entering a pantry or being seen accessing the resources. And what we actually found most in talking to students we serve is that they're more concerned with wanting to know where it is and wanting to know what resources are available to them than worried about a stigma of being seen going to the pantry. Overwhelmingly, what we hear is more along the lines of, I wish I knew you were here sooner, then I wish people didn't see me coming to the shop. So we're really trying to do more and more these days to promote the shop, promote the resources, and make sure that folks know about it. Folks like yourselves can really be helpful allies and support for what we're doing to talk to your students about it. And we promote it as a resource that the students get to decide if it is a useful resource to them. We do not vet them. We don't ask them to show any proof of need or a demonstrated need of any kind. If they are a Rowan student and they wish to access the resources and services we have available in the shop, then the shop is for them. There's no entry interview or anything of that nature. So we are open 2 days a week through the shop. Our open hours are Mondays and Fridays from noon until 4. Students are okay to come to the shop once per week. And we currently have some COVID guidelines and restrictions as far as how many people can be in the shop at any given time, but we do allow the students to do the shopping for themselves. So we ask that they bring a reusable bag to make their way through the pantry and select what items work best for them. So it's not prepackaged things or pre-selected items. The students get to do their own shopping. We have predominantly non-perishable items, but we also do have right now one refrigerator and one large freezer, and we have a couple larger refrigerators coming in later on this semester to be able to offer more perishable items in response to some feedback we've gotten from students that that's what they wish to see. But again, the students would be able to shop for themselves. We also have other items available for personal care items, home cleaning supplies, some clothing, and some like home equipment like kitchen utensils and things like that students may need. We also, much of the resource center that we represent ourselves as is our ability to connect students with other resources on campus, partnerships with other offices that we know have supportive resources and services for students, as well as some off-campus partners that we can direct students to within the community. So for you all, again, to remember that we allow the students to identify this as a useful resource for them, and if they choose to come to the shop, that is all the indication we need that the shop is a resource for them. So please share the word with students as much as possible so that they know where we are and how to access us. You can also visit us on our website where there's a map with a blinking arrow that will point exactly to where our front door is if you need a map of the Rowan Boulevard apartments. So as you come to the shop, we do have kind of the one entrance and the one exit. It's kind of like you do a loop as you come in and go out. So usually there'll be, since we only allow one student at a time in the shop right now, in the ribbon cutting photo there, that's the courtyard. You'll likely see students kind of lining up and congregating, waiting to be able to access the shop. So if folks were to come, we do have the space in the courtyard there for the lineup, and then inside we also have some other resources along the wall, either things they can take away about recipes and what to do with the items that they select, all the way also to connect them with outside resources like other meal programs in town, if they wanted to pursue eligibility for programs like SNAP or other assistance through the state. We have information there, and we can do consultations as well. So in addition to what we provide through the shop, we also have a partner program for the shop that we call the Fresh for All. This is an opportunity for free fresh produce. We host a free market every Friday from 10 until 11 a.m. And it's here on campus. It's actually out in the football stadium parking lot. This is available not only to all Rowan students, but to any community members. So this is a open to all program. Between the hours of 10 and 11, we currently do it as a drive-through. So groups will kind of line up cars, drive on through. We don't know what produce we have to give out until the morning of the distribution. So it really is it's a surprise every Friday. And so we encourage students to come out and take a full distribution of everything we have, even if it's something that they don't recognize or have never cooked with before. We say, take it, give it a shot, see what you can do with it. And if you find out that you actually like it, then you'll know if you're ever shopping that this is something worth buying, or to know I'm never gonna buy that with my own money because I didn't like it when it was free. But every Friday we have that opportunity, and it is always fruits and vegetables, and then sometimes a selection of other items like dairy and eggs and things like that, but those are not as consistent as the fruits and vegetables. We also offer the opportunity for students only if they wish to receive some of the produce from the fresh for all, but they cannot make it to the parking lot on Fridays between 10 and 11. They can register with the shop. And what we do is we package up a full distribution of everything we have that Friday morning, and we deliver it to the shop after the fresh for all is closed, so that they can pick it up from the shop later on that day between 12 and 4. So we basically extended the time period that they can get it. So if they can't get to the parking lot between 10 and 11, but they can get to the shop sometime after 2, they can pick it up there. So we make that available to students because we know the 1 hour window is a little small to try to get over to the parking lot. So if they have class, work, or other commitments and they can't make it, we can coordinate to have a basket brought over to the shop for that student to pick up. So, and that is a year-round program. The only time we would cancel that is due to inclement weather or national holiday. And additionally, another food resource that we have that I think is important for folks to know about and to hopefully spread the word and discuss with students that you think may benefit is a partnership we have through the shop with Gourmet Dining and the Dean of Students Office. As part of our gourmet dining contract on campus, Gourmet provides us with several thousand meals each year that is then basically given to the shop and the Dean of Students Office to be distributed to students at our discretion. So the Dean of Students Office has set up this donated meals program where students can request to have meals placed directly onto their rowing card that they would then be able to use at any on-campus dining location. The students, if they are interested in accessing some of the meal swipes, they would contact the shop, set up a meeting with me where I would discuss the program and make sure they're aware of kind of what we can do, what we can't do, how we can support them. And then I would make a recommendation to the Dean of Students Office, who would approve or deny the student to receive donated meals. But these are essentially meal swipes that get placed directly onto the student's card. They use at their own pace, at their own discretion. It's not a traditional meal plan as much as it is a block of meal swipes that they can use at any on-campus dining location. This too is something that we could always use support from folks in spreading the word because not a lot of students necessarily know that this is a resource that is available. And we want students to know so that they can apply and advocate for themselves and allow us to advocate for them with the Dean of Students Office. So this is something, again, that it's a part of Gourmet Dining's contract that they have to provide us with these meals. And so we want to be sure to, if they're gonna have to give us all those meal swipes, we wanna be sure to give them all back out to students. So help from you all in sharing the word about that so that we can get them onto the accounts of students who can use them is really our priority. And then lastly, we also try to partner as much as possible to connect with other areas, other departments, student groups, to connect with these resources and find ways to talk to students and get the information out there about the resources that we have. So for you all, a couple of different ways that you can be supportive of these things, like I've already talked about, information sharing and talking to students. But we've also worked with different departments and different areas on campus. If you think it would be beneficial to have some snacks, a bowl of granola bars in your common area or in your office, we can provide some of those things for you to have out for students. The example I use is through the tutoring center. We provide them with some snacks, and they have a little station at the entrance to their tutoring center. With some information, we find that tutoring is more successful if you don't have an empty stomach. So, grab a snack, have something to eat, and come on, sit down for your tutoring session, because, students are less successful when they're experiencing hunger. So, we provide that there, and then it also comes with a little information so that maybe the student knows more about the shop too, that they can visit. So if you think there's some area or some use similar for your area, reach out to us and we will work with you to establish something. We also work with student organizations and departments on sponsoring events with food or sponsoring donation drives for the shop. And then, as much as possible, we try to, support opening up events, especially the catered events on campus. This was something that, when we talk about food insecure students, I've had a couple students now open up to me this semester that they didn't necessarily identify themselves as food insecure or consider themselves food insecure until recently, when they realized all of these other networks that they had cultivated to cover their hunger have now gone away in the COVID reality. That, students are saying, I didn't realize how many of my meals a week were covered by free pizza at events on campus. And those events aren't happening anymore, or they're not giving out buffet food anymore. So I don't get that meal coverage. So I'm starting to realize, like, wow, I actually do miss a lot of meals if there's not as much free food around campus. As we start to reopen for those catered events on campus, to know that there are a lot of students who rely on those things and do appreciate them. So as much as you can open up your catered events to students, that is very much appreciated and supportive of students, and the students notice it.
So now we'll pivot a little bit to talking about how do we actually engage students on this important topic, how you recognize when a student might be in need of help or in a crisis, and what I like lovingly call also the worst practices in terms of what you shouldn't say to people in those circumstances that may do more harm than good. So we'll start off with that, which is a little bit more fun here. And as sort of silly as some of these are going to sound, you'd be surprised how often they accidentally come out in these conversations, just because sometimes we don't know what to say. So it's important for us just to recognize when some of these statements are problematic. So if you ever are an instance where a student or a community member is opening up to you about some of their financial difficulties, obviously telling people that everybody has these problems can be something that sounds good theoretically, but can definitely diminish or challenge sort of the way that that person is experiencing those. A lot of times also, placing blame, any type of language where it's asking people, what did you do? I can't believe you did that, can also shut that conversation down and prevent future communication from happening. One of the most common things that we actually see when we're talking to especially faculty members about this are people saying, well, I didn't know they were food insecure because they had a coffee cup with them every class, or I didn't know that they were having that problem because I saw they had really expensive sneakers on. And so sometimes those judgmental tones about the items that a student brings with them to campus can again challenge our ability to recognize when somebody actually is in crisis. And we really encourage people not to express judgment on what people have with them, since we often don't know how they obtain those items, or what they are personally determining is something that is important for them to live, a fulfilled life. Again, we also discourage people from giving everyone specific advice, telling people exactly what they need to do. If you're not a financial counselor, it's probably not a good idea to, give them investment advice or tell them where they should be spending their money or saving their money. So instead, we encourage you to refer people to some of the programs that we have on campus for people who are trained to have those more specific conversations. So let's take a look at some of the things that you should look for when you're trying to identify students, and then what are some of the things that we say. So one of the easiest ways to identify a student who might be having affordability concerns is to look around you and look at who has sort of camped out in the spaces around you. For example, my building has 2 student lounges, and when I see a student who is there from the very beginning of the morning all the way to the end of the day, it's usually a good indicator that they don't have another space to go to in between classes. And I especially try to pay attention to see, are they actually eating a snack? Are they eating a lunch? And that's a good way to sort of monitor and see that might be somebody who is finding those resources challenging right now. We also know that laundry can be complicated for college students, but if you see a student wearing repeated outfits without laundering, that's often, again, an indicator that they may be having financial difficulty in affording that type of personal care. Even laundry on campus can be somewhat expensive. We actually had this issue raised by the Student Government Association at the end of last year. So just that's another good indicator to think of. Continuous use of free food or resources. I host a lot of student meetings on campus, and we almost always have some sort of catering as a part of them. And one of the ways that I know to look for students is if I see students attending again and again and again to those events that have that free food, it's an indicator that they may be relying on it, as Andrew said, for food, even if they don't even sort of consciously know that's what they're doing. That's just sort of how they're feeding themselves. If you have students who approach you about asking about scholarships or aid packages, oftentimes they may disclose that that's because they're having difficulty affording college. And then one other item is just thinking about people who may be having transportation issues. So if you have a student who's routinely late to class or unable to attend class because they are walking or because they have unreliable transportation, it's again a good indicator that it's maybe a student who needs outreach. And all of these are sort of presented to us by the Department of Education. So now, how do we actually talk to those students? Well, as Andrew pointed out, one of the easiest ways is to actually offer them some of those resources that they might be needing. So if you have a bowl of granola bars out in a common space, that's a really good way of sort of starting a conversation about some of the resources that are available. So we actually have stickers that you can put on those granola bars that send people information to the shop. I believe the address is on it, right, Andrew? And so that's a good way to sort of start that conversation, like, oh, hey, you know, I see you took one of those granola bars. If you're interested in getting more of that, just head on over there and they'll be able to help you out. We also encourage you to keep brochures and flyers around. If you have a bulletin board, I have flyers to give you, and you can hang those up just as a way for students to sort of browse them without having to actually talk to anyone. If you are thinking that a student might be in financial crisis, we encourage you to speak directly to them. Don't try to like wait around the issue. Instead, feel out their comfort level, but definitely bring it up and say, hey, you know, I've noticed that you're having difficulty getting to class. Are you having difficulty with reliable transportation? Is that something you'd like help with? That direct type of communication can make it less awkward for the participant because they realize that it's something that is being directly expressed instead of something that's just being seen, but people are comfortable talking about. Also listen carefully. It's definitely an important thing to ask more information. My favorite phrase in all of public relations is the 3 words, tell me more. It works almost every time when you have a student or a community member who's talking about something difficult. It just really is a great way to demonstrate that you are listening, paying attention, and you want to hear more from that person. And then of course, we encourage you to refer them to the appropriate resources on campus. You may be thinking to yourself, well, what are those resources? Aside from what Andrew's already talked about, well, we have a handy flow chart for you that we sort of stole the design from the counseling center. So if a student comes to you and they say, I'm experiencing financial difficulty, or let's say you just identified a student based on the list that we just went over, here are some of the places that you can send them. The first one-stop shop, obviously, Dean of Students is incredibly supportive for these, and the CARES team is kind of embedded within that. That's another great team to send them to. The shop, as we put the contact information up there, it's definitely something that you could send a student directly to. They don't have to go through any other office. They can just go on their own. They don't need permission, as Andrew said. There's no vetting process. So it's a great place to send your students. We actually also offer a website for students to browse so they, again, don't have to meet with anyone, called ProfSense. And it offers information from everything about childcare, how to find low-cost childcare in the area, to other tax help, to legal help, things like that. You can send students to financial aid. It does seem like a default place most people send their students when they talk about financial concerns. And unfortunately, financial aid often just sends them to one of these other places. But if it's in particularly related to a financial aid package or a scholarship, they are more than happy to talk about that. And just as a additional resource here, the Disability Resources Office, we know a lot of these challenges often overlap and intersect with other challenges that students face. And so they are also equipped to help sort of identify students who might be needing some of these services and connect them to those services. So I'm going to stop my share. Looks like we are just about out of time. but we're definitely open to taking questions if anyone has them or has ideas for things that could be offered on campus.
So thank you, Allison and Andrew, for doing the presentation. It was a good refresher for me, and I can definitely second the benefit of the catered events. I do see a lot of students taking advantage of those, to the point where we actually had a midnight finals breakfast in Bunce that was actually at midnight. This was 2 years ago, and it was like swamped, with students I'd never seen before, and I had overheard some interactions about some of the food insecurity things that you're talking about. But just the fact that they would come to Bunce at midnight was pretty incredible, and kind of communicates the need. Is there any conversation about maybe moving the shop to a more prominent location now that we know that stigma issue isn't as big of an issue? I know that I'm sure being on the outskirts kind of would have helped that issue and kind of make it a bit more, obvious for folks to be able to go and get resources, or a bit less obvious, I guess. But I don't know if there was any part of the conversation.
Yeah, I'm gonna hand this over to Andrew here because you asked a very apt question.
So Stephen, thank you for that. Yes, there has definitely been conversation. Obviously, on any college campus, space is a premium. There's definitely been conversations about expanding need of our students. This was even pre-COVID to realize, like I said, that stigma was not there, and we want to be able to truly live up to the resource center portion of what we say the shop, pantry, and resource center is. And we talk about food insecurity rarely ever comes in isolation. It usually comes with other critical needs or other areas that could use some resources and supports. So been pitching this expansion idea for the shop to have more space to not only increase the size of the pantry, but to really connect it with some of these other resources that address basic needs and critical needs of students, to provide them with a one-stop where they could potentially visit the pantry, but also on Wednesday afternoons a financial counselor is there you can meet with, and we can have an outreach coordinator from SNAP there talking about benefits that maybe you could sign up for. But there also is going to be a workshop from the Let's Talk series through the Wellness Center, or Social Justice is doing a session there. We can work with our partners in the Career Advancement Office with their professional clothing closet that they have, and to work together collaboratively on that in a shared space. And we've received positive feedback on that from the Dean of Students on up through administration, to the point that we do have some support for the expansion and to provide some space to hopefully have more space, and to have a more prominent space that is seen more than just the pantry, but to be more of a community center. And in my opinion, it does, even if there is still concern for the stigma angle of things, it alleviates some of that, because similar to walking into the wellness center now, if you walk into Winans Hall, you could be going in there for any number of the services that they provide, including classrooms and other things. So if we were to provide this community center model for things, it's similar to what we have with the wellness center. And we find that right now, if a student comes into the shop and we engage them in conversation, and we find out that they could benefit from talking to someone else on campus, talking to a counselor, the best we can do in that moment now is to be a referral agent. But under this other model, it can be, hey, when you're done shopping, 2 doors down, you can sit with so-and-so from the financial aid office, or you can speak with a counselor, or we're going to have someone here doing SNAP eligibility on Thursday. So it's, they're finding out about these other resources. I came for the pantry, but I'm staying for the workshop, those types of things. So yeah. And one way you could support us is, to advocate for these things through CHESS too, just to say that, as an academic college, you see the benefit of these things for our students as well. So thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks everyone. We really appreciate your attention to affordability and your continued support. I'll do a quick plug. We do have the Affordability Task Force is sponsoring another session tomorrow on economic justice. So it'll take place, I believe, at 3:30 tomorrow. If you have students or a class that you want to invite to attend, we'd love to see you there.
Yes, thank you everyone for attending this session in the Health and Wellness Expo. I just dropped a link to our schedule so you can see the rest of the sessions, including Allison's schedule or Allison's session for tomorrow. So take a look at that when you can. Remember, the more sessions you attend, the more chances you have to win raffle prizes and more. So thank you again, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.